Hi, welcome along to Live on Air tonight. We're just a couple of minutes ahead of time. I think I saw a question from Simon Williams asking whether the session was going ahead. Certainly is, Simon. But if you'd just give us a couple of moments to just gather our thoughts in here. So I'm just going to share a screen with you just for the time being, and we'll come back to you. So you'll be getting our audio stream and just that welcome screen. So Simon, if you're in, you could use the Q&A just to indicate that you come in. We've got a few people coming in now, so it's probably quite a good time to actually begin. So welcome along to Live on Air this evening. I'm David Bell, and I've got with me Max Thompson. Now, Max has been an exceptionally good friend of mine for a long time now, but I've also known him in a professional capacity as a minister. He's been a variety of roles within the East Coast Bays Methodist Parish in Auckland, New Zealand, and he's also been chairperson of Trinity College Council when I was principal of Trinity Methodist Theological College. So welcome along tonight, Max. Would you like to say just a couple of words about yourself by way of introduction?
Thanks, David. Yes, I'm a retired communications engineer. I've lived most of my life in Auckland, but I had 20 years in Rotorua. I've lived in Wellington and in the UK. And stopped being a professional telecommunications engineer about 25 years ago.
Oh, okay. But you belong to a group called Engineers for
Social Responsibility, yes.
What's that group all about, Max?
It's a grouping of engineers that believe that engineers have a lot of control over the resources and how things are done and used, and they believe that it should be done in a socially responsible way. And so we pick up on a lot of the issues of the day when they affect engineering. And
of course, engineering has an effect, doesn't it, way out into the wider community. Many engineering projects have to deal with environmental awareness and all kinds of impacts on human behaviour. So
absolutely,
very important group.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that, Max. Well, what we're going to do without any further ado is tonight's episode is looking about the question of through the year with John Wesley. And Max, you got any idea?
Well, yes, I'd ask the question, what is this project through the year with John Wesley all about? I've certainly heard you talk about it a lot, but I'm a little confused on what it's about.
Okay, let's deal with the confusion, because I think that a number of people are interested, vitally interested in this project through the year with John Wesley and what it involves. So I'm going to just bring up a screen share here and an invitation to anyone as we're going through. If you want to ask your questions, please do so. You're very welcome to just type in as we're going along, and we'll try and pick up and answer as we go through the year with John Wesley. So here I am. I'm at the beginning of entering my Kiwi Connexion site, and I'm going to log in as demo student number 2. And just before I do, you can find out really there's an overview of what Kiwi Connexion is about, and at the login page, and there are a couple of useful links. One of them takes you to Through the Year with John Wesley, and the other takes you to the Genesis in Science, which is what that particular video is about. So having said that, let's log in and see what the normal way of getting to Through the Year with John Wesley is all about. When you log into Kiwi Connexion, Max, you land at a thing called your dashboard page. You always land here, and there are 4 options for you, just news and resources, books, galleries, projects, MicroMOOCs, Live on Air. Some people have been a bit confused about the navigation, so I'm looking at simplifying that and actually getting it down to just 3 major groups. Live on Air, Micro MOOCs, and the Creative Spaces pages, which has got a lot of creative work in it. So looking through there, I can see we've got a number of folk online. We've got Elizabeth Davies, Peter Lane, Roel Beggs, Julie Thompson, all looking at Live on Air through Kiwi Connexion. So great to have you on board there. There will be others perhaps who are looking at it through Google Plus and perhaps one or two through YouTube. So who knows? We'll find out about that as the evening progresses. So how do I get to this project called Through the Year with John Wesley? There are two ways. I can either find it in a thing called the Methodist Survey or Micro MOOCs. Now, I would prefer people went in through the Methodist Survey. So if you can click on that, find that group and join it. You have to join the group to be able to get the forum notifications and so on and so forth. And here is what Through the Year with John Wesley is all about.
David, the term Methodist Survey confuses me a little. Can you expand on why you use that terminology?
What do you think I mean by survey, Max?
To me, a survey is something you've gone out to the Methodist members in New Zealand and asked them some questions.
Right. It's not that kind of survey. That's a really very cool question. It goes all the way back to John Wesley, who did a survey of general knowledge, the state of general knowledge, particularly scientific knowledge, back in his era. So the survey was for Methodists who were studying to be lay preachers and leaders and doers in the Methodist movement. So there we are. A Methodist survey here is referring back to an 18th century rather than a 21st century. Let's have a survey and find out what people think. This really is about what John Wesley thought. So in Methodist survey, you've got four major things going on. And each one of them is quite important for the idea of Through the Year with John Wesley. And let's just take a look at the first one. There's William Morley's History of Methodism in New Zealand. So if I click on that, I get taken to a high quality PDF of Morley's book published in the year 1900. Now, in order to download this PDF, what you've got to do, just hover your mouse around the top of the screen and click the pop-out button. And that now will bring up a variety of options. You could print the book, which I don't recommend, or you could download it, or you could actually share it with someone else as a link. So using that download button, you would be able to download the whole of that PDF. And I think it's a fantastic resource. So that's something to have a bit of a think about. So any questions about that particular aspect of Methodist Survey, Max?
No, that makes a lot more sense now. I understand what it means.
Okay, so if you wanted to survey New Zealand Methodist history up to the year 1900, Morley is the place to go. And it is a high quality reproduction. And so you can cut and paste the graphics from that PDF and use them. They're totally beyond any kind of copyright regulations now. The second aspect of Through the Year with John Wesley is about a collection called Sung and Unsung Personalities in the New Zealand Methodist Church. And this is an expanding collection which has been written by mostly by Donald Phillips, the Reverend Donald Phillips down in Dunedin. And we'll talk about Donald later on in Through the Year with John Wesley. We won't talk about him tonight, but he is in fact the last remaining Methodist presbyter who had a direct link to the early missionary Methodist families. So that's, yeah, the last of the line, as it were, who's a Methodist minister. the third aspect is through the year with John Wesley, and then there's also a fourth aspect that links to the John Kinder Library. And the John Kinder Library is the main Anglican library for the whole of New Zealand. And during my time as principal, I was able to give funding that put online all of these Methodist Church newspapers from the colonial period. So that's a fantastic resource, and you'll see how it's always available in Through the Year with John Wesley. So let me just stop sharing for the time being. Max, any questions, comments, etc.? That's the project, Through the Year with John Wesley.
And you've used this term social learning, that's what it's about. But what do you mean by social learning?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that question too, because social learning is what Kiwi Connexion as a whole is on about. Social learning is a way of doing learning that isn't confined to formal classroom situations, be they at primary, secondary, or tertiary level. Social learning is much more like on-the-job learning or non-formal learning. Now, non-formal learning could be in the workplace where you start picking things up. For example, when I went to church this morning, your good lady Julie, your wife Julie, did the intercessory prayers. So there's a kind of a form of social learning that she's been using prayer resources, often supplied by Andrew Gammon, I think. Well, certainly in the past, but Julie does research as well. And so she learns socially through using the internet in terms of getting resources, but you can't in any way quantify it as formal learning. But really a great deal of learning is going on in order to be able to give an effective set of intercessory prayers. That's non-formal learning. There's also informal learning, and this is the kind of learning we do when we're sitting around having a cup of coffee. People might think that Max and I, being very good friends and also having the professional thing, never really argue, but I can assure you that part of our informal learning is people, would you say, Max, that we often have extremely different views on subjects. Now, we've applied this idea of social learning throughout Kiwi Connexion so that it in no way interferes with any kind of academic institution. We don't try to compete academically, for example, with Auckland University. How could we? We don't try to compete, for example, with the local high school. How could we? Social learning, nevertheless, can be just as powerful as the formal learning that goes on in various classrooms. So just wondering if anyone has any questions or comments about social learning, whether they'd like to feed them in through the chat pod, through the question pod.
A question that comes to my mind, all the formal learning you talk about is well recorded, you get a qualification. What kind of recognition or record is there of our learning in this social learning context?
Well, again, I think that's a fantastic question, and this is where something like Mahara software, an e-portfolio system, comes into its own. Let's just go back and share the screen and have a look at, let's go directly to Through the Year with John Wesley, and we'll be able to start to answer that question directly. Now, I clicked on Through the Year with John Wesley, and I'm logged in as demonstration student, and all the pages have this kind of identical layout. You've got a series of months. Each month has got a topic. And in that topic, there are video resources. So for the month of January, we're talking about particularly some contributions of Kiwi Methodists. So the Reverend William Morley, the great statesman of the 19th century, that was the book that you could download, the PDF. the Reverend Daniel Dutton, the Reverend P.W. Fairclough, born under geometry's golden sun. This only happens once in a blue moon as far as Methodist presbyters are concerned. And then so a little bit of the Anglicans convulsing over the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender debates and the Anglican primates making their decisions. It's all been talked about in a different kind of way, but the same essential problems way back in the time of Samuel Butler in the 19th century. Now, Max, there's an image of your old church at Campbell's Bay. And here, the video is about the evolution debate. When evolution, Charles Darwin's theory, was introduced, did it start to cause church decline? So our social learning is going on all the time, but how do you record your answers, your insights? How do you share that socially? Well, you'll see at the various resources, you can add comments. Now, if you want to add a comment about the videos, let me just click into that video. You can see there that it's now starting to play over in YouTube. And if I wanted to watch it in YouTube, I just click that YouTube button. I'm going to stop it because otherwise we'll get a feedback of me talking over me. But you could watch it in YouTube, and in YouTube itself, there's a section where you can comment. But here, for example, you might want to make a comment on this particular month of January. And here we're starting to record our social learning. It's in no way formalized. No one marks it. No one grades it. No one says this is right or this is wrong or this is worth 50%. We're adults. We're not in a situation where we're trying to grade one another, but we are in a situation where we have insights that are worth sharing. So the entire social learning thing can be recorded through the comments at the bottom of the pages. There's also other ways of sharing in the Methodist survey. And let me just point out this little navigational aid. If, at the top of the page, if I always look for where it says by, it'll say by an individual. So it might be by Rosalie Segru or Dorothy Willis or Lavinia Elder or Max Thompson, or it might be by a group. In this case, the group is Methodist Survey. So if I click on by, I will always come to either the about page of the group or the profile page of the person whose name I clicked. So I've been brought back into that social learning context. So I'll stop sharing my screen at this point and we'll come back. And Max, any comments? Does that answer your question? Where's the record of our social learning?
Yes, it certainly does. It's if we participate and ask questions or comment, then we've got a record there of that. And it makes sense that we've got this project, but I'm still grappling with how it benefits individuals other than this collective record of forums and discussion.
Okay, how do we help individuals in through this social learning? Let's come back to the screen share. And the answer to that is found in a slightly unexpected way. I'm going to go back to my dashboard page. Remember, I can always get to my dashboard by either clicking dashboard or the Kiwi connection icon. And back here in the dashboard, you'll see that you can apply for certain badges. Now, the badging system is run by Open Badge Factory. It's quite fantastic. So here, this is just a beginner's guide to completing your profile. And to complete your profile, what you have to do is go to the profile completion tips. You've got to make 5 friends. Kiwi Connection's about being social. I like having lots of friends because there are some advantages in sharing messaging amongst friends. You've got to create a journal and add 2 entries to it. And I'll deal with journal entries on another live on air presentation. You do have to put up your profile picture, and I'm the world's worst for this. I haven't put up my own profile picture because I'm still trying to get the perfect selfie. It's not going to happen, is it? And see there, it says comment on 5 other users' pages. So let's have a bit of a look at that. I see with these online users, let me just go, I'm going to click on the name Julie Thompson. And I've come to Julie's profile page, and lo and behold, she's put up a profile picture. You've put up a profile picture. Rill, Christine, David, and Jessica still got to put their profile pictures up. She's got a wall where we could make social interaction comments. You can make the post private there, or if you leave that unchecked, it'll make it a public post, but it won't be made public until Julie actually approves your post. So there are certain things going on there. Let me see if I can find, or if I click on Stuart's profile page, I'll get, he's been working at this, and I've been working with him to get the profile well and truly developed. And we can see here, he's been working away at putting up who he is, profile information, the publications he's done. Those are the groups he belongs to. There are no comments on Stuart's wall at present, but nevertheless, you can see some of the pages that he has created. Just for example, So Me music stories for juniors. And there, if you scroll down the page and come all the way to the bottom, you can add comments. So getting the badge and adding the comments gives a record of the social learning, and actually having the badge to share brings a project benefit to the person. Now, let me just click, we've opened quite a few tabs here, so let's just click most of them closed and come back into, here we go, Methodist survey through the year with John Wesley. And when I scroll down, I can find there are some more things. There's a comment about what social learning really is. Here are the links on each time you come to a new month and through the year with John Wesley, those links to Wesley Historical Society, sung and unsung personalities, etc. Optional extras, join night school, and soon to go up will be the people that have been contributing pages to Through the Year with John Wesley. And one of those people is, in fact, Stuart. So I'm going to go back to Find Friends, and let's just type in Stuart's name. Search for Stuart, Stuart McAdam, Stuart Mannins. Stuart McAdam is the Cinema Addicts CEO, so fantastic things going on there. Have a look here in Stuart's portfolios, you'll see Mannins on Methodism. Now, how did the project benefit the individual? As Stuart worked through a number of the issues, he created these comments, and each one of them has been put into an entire collection. So we're on page 1 of Stuart's collection. So he wrote about Wesley's influence during Wesley's lifetime. So there's a fantastic record going on there. I'll scroll down a little further. He wrote an observation about Wesley's sermon on original sin. So all of these collections that people do on Methodism will in fact ultimately end up in links, will end up as links in the Methodist survey Through the Year with John Wesley. So it won't just be my video resourcing, but all the people who work through, made comments, etc. We'll show them how to collect those comments, how to put them into journals, how to share the journals so that they end up as new links to New Zealand Methodist history. So the next link to go in there would be Mannins on Methodism. We have some other people that have also done the social learning in this kind of way, and they have collections that will be added in here. Only adding them as they're properly edited, so they're good value resources. So the project has benefited the individual, I think, quite significantly.
You say that it benefits the individual, and I can see that, but it strikes me that there's a huge resource there that could benefit study groups and congregations. Could you expand on that, David?
Well, it's possible to personalise these resources for a study group or for a congregation. And it's a little bit, I'm not going to attempt to do that with a big project like Through the Year with John Wesley, because I don't think that I could, when you look at the huge amount of resourcing that's already gone into it, and the individual things that are there, like Mannins on Methodism. We had some fantastic resources that we were able to bring over from Six Senses. Now, of course, as you know, Six Senses was closed recently. The powers that be decided that somehow it was confused with the Trinity College website, or I'm not sure how that confusion arose, but nevertheless, it arose, and so I was happy for them to say, okay, we'll close that, and I've been more than delighted to be able to bring Kiwi Connexion on board. It's entirely independent, and it works off this social learning by individuals, and there are quite a few of us. I think overall, at this stage, there's probably about 140 people whose names exist within Kiwi Connexion, probably about 50, 60 New Zealand Methodists, and about 30 Australian Uniting Church ministers. They're in a separate institution that isn't called Kiwi Connexion, but they're all interlinked, and it's possible that at some stage the Australian ones, as they get more used to using the Mahara software, I mean, we're well used to using it, or I'm well used to using it. As they get more used to using it, they may want to see what's happening in our use of Mahara, and we may want to see what's happening in their use of Mahara. But it's entirely over to different institutions. Another person that's set up with an institution is Peter Lane. He's another engineer. I think he's electrical or audio. I'm not 100% sure. I think he's been involved in a lot of project management, but he did work for Green Church, and he wrote a fantastic article. I think the Methodist Church funded him to go to a big Green Church conference in Europe or something like that. And so it came about that he wrote it up extensively, and he's toying with the idea of having an institution called Green Church, but he's actually got another institution in Kiwi Connexion called the Diaconate of IT. Now, Peter and I have yet to work together on starting to develop that, but I think I understand what his institution is going to be about. It's going to be very small, but the project clearly, you can set up projects rather than institutions. I prefer to work with groups. Here we go. Peter's just put something in. What does he say? He says, do engineering, am not an engineer. Any comments on that, Max?
Oh, well, there's lots of ways of getting into engineering. One is the academic way that I did, but the way that Peter's chosen is equally valid. If you learn and you do engineering, then yes, you're an engineer.
And Max, isn't that true in ministry as well?
I believe so, yes. People come into ministry through the channels of academic training, but I think a lot of lay people do ministry.
Well, I would say that ministry is actually done by lay people. Something else is done by ministers that I don't think is any longer ministry. I think it's a professional thing, but I wouldn't, yeah, maybe it's a professional ministry, but I think it's something different to the basic ministry that lay people do all the time in churches and congregations and study groups. So the Through the Year with John Wesley can benefit study groups, certainly can benefit congregations. If you were to be in a congregation and simply watch one video a week and make a very brief comment at the end of the month about that selection of videos, it doesn't have to be a treatise. It doesn't have to be a Stuart Mannon's 15-page collection. We really don't mind. But if you're able to make comments, you'll find that your comments are tracked and that you'll earn an open badge for that. Now, the whole of Kiwi Connection is set up so you can earn open badges. There aren't many of them. Well, I've been trying to simplify the system, and the open badges really, once you've accumulated a few and shared them on social media, what we aim to do is to produce people that we feel are community theologians. And so we recognize the fantastic contribution that these people are making theologically in their communities. And we do the same, we call them church ambassadors for Christ, and also a recognition of the role of the service that many people do in congregations. So an example of a great ambassador that we gave a badge to a number of months ago is Peter Leadley. Peter is the younger brother of the minister Alan Leadley. Poor old Alan died not all that long ago, and unfortunately Peter has the same illness, but it doesn't affect his lungs so much as his heart and other parts of his body. Great ambassador for Christ, serving in secondary schools, and we recognise that in Kiwi Connection. Not going to be recognised by any other group, but we're happy to say we understand what that's about, and so he's been a great ambassador. And this is the beauty of open badging. It relates all the way back to the informal, non-formal learning situations. That's why it's become so hugely popular in a variety of European countries, and once Bill Clinton gave the go-ahead for it in America 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, it started to take off there too. And even universities and academic institutions now recognise that a great deal of learning goes on informally and non-formally, and they also offer open badging alongside of formal qualifications. So the study group as a whole, the congregation as a whole might say, hey, we want to learn a bit more about Methodism and John Wesley. So let's just, without any further ado, I think I've answered that question, Peter, so I'm just going to click done, and the last slide I'm going to come back to is sharing the screen again, Through the Year with John Wesley, and let's just have an overview of what it is that we see in this program. And let's come all the way up to the navigation. In the month of January, it's focusing on Kiwi Methodists. In the month of February, it's still on Kiwi Methodists, but it's all the controversies that happen where people walk out of churches, where lay people get really upset about Charles Darwin's theory, where the Methodists and the Anglicans and the Presbyterians get locked in power struggles. It all happens down at the Y in Dunedin, where William Salmon, who really was a kind of arch-conservative in some way, in some respects, not in all respects, in the Dunedin Presbytery, ends up on a heresy charge. So that's in the month of February. In March, we're looking at Methodists doing theology at depth. And here, the video that I've started off with is the Reverend Ormond Burton, decorated World War I hero, ardent pacifist, thrown into jail during World War II, deserted by the Methodist movement. So Burton, I think, is one of the outstanding figures, truly outstanding figures. Now, I haven't completed the project, Max. I'm still got April and May and the rest of March to do. So I'm going to flick straight over to June, the month for enthusiasm. And John Wesley really was on about enthusiasm in a big kind of way. And so the video series is exploring aspects of that. Are Methodists problem gamblers at heart? And that is the debate about predestination versus free will. Methodists prick the Bible and discover Poe. What on earth is that? Poe is actually Edward de Bono's word for provocation, which we looked at in design and ministry last time. Methodists explore free will and strange attraction and synchronicity. These are, that's one of the best performing videos. I mean, some of these videos have thousands and thousands of views, and I mean overall the entire channel is now up over 120,000 views, probably tracking I think it's probably at 400,000 watch minutes. So in a few months time I'm expecting it to be to 500,000 watch minutes of these topics. In the month of July we were looking at valuing reasoning. And there we've incorporated a clip from David Attenborough, John Wesley's sermon, The Limitations and Imperfection of Human Knowledge, Find Christ and Reason, so on. Some of the videos go all the way back to when I interviewed Jim Stewart, well over a decade ago. Max, make it, oh, sorry.
I was going to say a question that they have there, David. You're going into future months, but it appears that some of the resources are there now. Can you explain a little bit as to what we can expect if we're flicking into the future and where not to go?
Oh, look, go anywhere, because I started this project in June last year. So that's why it starts at the month of June. And I'm coming to the completion of it now. And all of these videos, I mean, I've got to say I'm not a video maker. They don't sort of just pop out of the ether, as it were. There's quite a bit of thought. Everyone is perfectly scripted. The script appears as closed captioning in YouTube, so that deaf people and those who have English as a second language can follow along. And the big resource that will come when all the videos are complete, I will put all of it together, all the scripts together as an ebook, free ebook for distribution. So there's a lot more resourcing yet to come. But you can see, I'll just have a very brief overview. Making informed moral choices, the happiness choice is without doubt the most watched video. The last count I had, it was about 14,500 views, and most of them watched through to the end. God, that's a short video as opposed to some of my longer ones. So making informed moral choices, there are a number of videos in that. Meeting John Wesley in his journal was perhaps the most fascinating of all. You know, learning about John Wesley's fantastic walking expeditions, the prose, poetry and courage of John and Charles Wesley, the great vision, the world is my parish. And this one seemed to do remarkably well. The remarkable Mr. Wesley, a social gospel entrepreneur, and so on and so forth. So I'll just come back over and stop sharing the screen at that point, because we're getting very close to the broadcast end, maybe a couple of more minutes at the most. We've only had that one question from Peter Lane. So are there any final comments or queries, Max, that you'd like to make about this project?
You've covered an awful lot of resources. Are there any other resources, or do you feel like summarizing the resources available? Because it's, yeah, there's a lot of it.
There certainly is a lot of it, and the best way of getting the overall summary of what's on offer in terms of Through the Year with John Wesley is to go back to that group, Methodist Survey. There are the major set of resources. Other Methodist personalities developed mostly by Donald Phillips, Susan Thompson. So I'm looking at John Wesley's theology, how it works out, and how it inspired various ministers and lay people in the New Zealand context. So roughly half the year is with John Wesley in the English context, and roughly half the year is with the Kiwi Methodists. And the links to the resources in the John Kinder Library. Another way of getting into it, we've just set the forum posts up. Nothing much is happening there yet, so you could always check out the forums in Methodist Survey. Every group has its forum. There are just 2 topics that I put in here: new videos and greetings to everyone as I set it up. I mean, it was only set up on the 28th of January 2016. What are we now? Early March. So effectively, there are a huge number of resources that we've brought on into Kiwi Connexion. I should close by pointing out this community one will probably close and just simply become a news link when you log in at your dashboard, so that you just get the link to the latest news. Creative Spaces is got a huge number of resources starting here. We could mention Art and Craft with, we've got Joan's Gallery and Charmaine's Gallery. There you can click on the profile page or go directly to Joan's Gallery. In Charmaine's case, it just says go to my gallery there, and in her gallery you can click through and add comments on the resources. So I'll close that tab and that tab. The book club and forums is at this point still not quite where we want it to be. So Stuart's done a fantastic job in this book on the evolution of everything. He's been doing it as journal entries, and you can see his complete journal entry, all the journal entries for the evolution of everything. You can add comments to the journal entries, just click through page by page. He's completed the task of the evolution of the universe, morality, life, genes, etc. But we're not happy with the navigation in that group, and so I'll be looking at that one again. Let's just come back to my groups and back to Creative Spaces. Cinema and YouTube rather. Well, I've been working extensively with Stuart McAdam, great young guy at Trinity at Waiaki. He's the CEO of Cinema Addicts, but he's not the only person interested in movies. You've got Clive Dyson, the Kiwi toy maker. I remember, Max, you were particularly impressed by what Clive had to say.
Yes.
Dave Hallam, you can click on his YouTube channel, and he got the Muso Award in 6 Senses. Stuart McAdam has been a presenter numerous times, and Stuart and I did these 2 series about the creative process. They're there as playlists, so you can click on any one of these. They're only 2 3-minute or even 60-second videos about the creative process. We've got a lot more coming up about creativity in Kiwi Connexion. Well, I really do think that that's probably about as much as anyone wants to learn about Kiwi Connexion tonight. Any final comments, Max?
No, thanks for that, David. I certainly go away much clearer in my mind as to how to access the resources, what resources there are, and how to use them than I had before.
Well, thank you very much for that, and thank you to Max and to everyone that supports Kiwi Connexion. It's got some fantastic resources done by some fantastic people, and I'm just so happy and proud to be associated with it. And do watch out for the complete Adam and Eve and evolution in the group Genesis and Science. The final video of that series is coming this Wednesday evening. It's scheduled, it's done, it'll be there. And then we will really be promoting that, and I'm getting a lot of help from Stuart McAdam, promoting free resources about how to read Adam and Eve and evolution, whether you're a young person or an old person or just someone in between. Thanks very much for watching.